Panthers, Jets. Carolina wins this one 13-6. Carolina Panthers, 3 in a row, baby.
Over 500.
They're rolling
4-3.
4-3.
Feeling good.
They're on the heels.
Got a road win
of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. See how,
second place, Carolina.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
If Tampa loses against the Lions, which of course they're not, but if they do, Carolina's 1 game back. 3 weeks ago, they had people quitting podcasts, fan podcasts, because they were so bad. Now they're on a 3-game win streak. They're 1 game back from the NFC South. Kind of rolling. 13-6. Final score in this game. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Carolina Panthers. A lot of defense. Defensive tackle Derek Brown at the top of the list, 85.8. Cornerback J.C. Horn, 74.9. You love to see.
Probably should be an 84.9 there. Maybe I typed that in.
All right, 84.9.
If it's second there, I think it's 84.9.
I was going to say, you love to see the young defensive stars at the top, and it's even better if Dalton could type correctly. Just getting
It's been a long week.
Offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu, an 81.2. Maybe it was the Taco Bell that got in the way.
Oh, we'll see that.
Cornerback Mike Jackson, 80.8. Wide receiver Xavier Legette, leading receiver in this game, 76.6. Bryce Young, 58.4. On the Jets side of things, defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, an 84.7. Cornerback Sauce Gardner, 78.9. Cornerback Azarie Thomas, a 75.9. Cornerback Brandon Stevens, a 75.4. Linebacker Jamian Sherwood, a 72.3. Number 5 to round things out for him. And then Justin Fields, benched at halftime, replaced by Tyrod Taylor. Not so sure we see him again, unless I missed a press conference in which Glenn said he'd go back in there at some point. Fields, though, a 38.9 overall grade. Stats told the story, Dalton.
I'll start with the Jets offense in the sense of, okay, they come into this game with obviously a struggling quarterback in Justin Fields, and they play this game without Garrett Wilson. So you're throwing to guys like Alan Lazard and Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson. If the Jets were going to win this football game, they'd have to run it. The problem is they had no explosive runs in this game against the Carolina run defense that has been inconsistent, better than last year for sure. Obviously, when they were one of the worst run defenses in really the history of the league. But the Jets had to run the football to win this game, and yet they had no explosive runs. They had a 47.5 run blocking grade. The Panthers, solid 68 run defense grade. Honestly, for their standard and what they're trying to improve upon, that's really solid. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm curious as to why the Jets, in a relatively close game where they were down by no more than 10, just like you had with Jacksonville, they only called 15 run plays the entire game. 2 in the second half in a game where they were not down by any more than 13-3. It just now it's starting to feel like this Jets offense is just going through the motions, honestly. I think there was a little more of a they tried to get in more, I think, 11 personnel and run out of more spread formations this week when they did, as opposed to kind of giving it away like I was talking about in the Denver game last week. But it's hard for them to score points anyway. But if they're not going to run the football as the design was coming into the year, then I don't really know how they could. And that's why this game ended up 13-6. And that's if you're on Aaron Glenn's side here, that's kind of the sad part, because their defense for 2 weeks has been pretty darn good. They've given up 13 points in each of the last 2 weeks. Jermaine Johnson came back, has been making a big impact, I think, on the rest of the defensive line. And Carolina, props to them, because there's not a whole lot of defensive games that they've been winning over the past couple of years. And to go up there with Bryce Young spraining his ankle, with Teteroa McMillan not having a huge day because he had Sauce Gardner shadowing him for the most part, they found a way to win. It starts with their run defense, although they didn't have to face a ton of rushing plays from the Jets. Carolina just that's all you can say really, is there was one threat that the Jets had, really, is Breece Hall and maybe Justin Fields' legs. And Carolina, when they did see it, mostly shut it down, and the Jets just kind of quit on it in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina had the 16th best EPA per play this week, and they still won the game. And not that that's like a terrible EPA per play, but a negative EPA per play overall on the day is not a great overall offensive output. The fact of the matter is that the Jets cannot win games with Justin Fields. They can't. They can't win games with him. He completed 6 passes of his 12 for 46 yards. He's gun shy. He's not seeing things as fast as he needs to. He's not processing things the way that he needs to. And if the run game was on fire and he was a big part of that, I get keeping him in, because that was the whole give and take that you and I talked about before the season began, is The Jets aren't going to be a potent passing offense. What you want is the run game to be good enough with Breece Hall and really just all the backs that they have, plus the rushing attack of Justin Fields to be able to move ball down the field. And then when they need to, they got Garrett Wilson and hopefully Mason Taylor to throw the ball to. Like, that was the whole hope. Fields isn't even really contributing to the run game at all. And the run game, you mentioned, not explosive in and of itself. So instead, you have to not play Justin Fields now because he no longer is part of an equation that gives you a chance to win football games. Tyrod Taylor is the only quarterback on the roster who gives you a chance to win football games right now, the way that the Jets are playing.
And without, to be honest, for me, without Garrett Wilson, at this point, I don't know how. And it doesn't surprise me at all. It shouldn't surprise anyone. They only scored 6 points because it's becoming the norm. But without Garrett Wilson, I really don't know how they score at all.
Right.
Because, I mean, you have Tyler Johnson and Allen Lazard and whatever else they have out there at receiver. They just don't have a passing game to speak of. That's really where, at least, the Titans have Cam Ward sometimes do some fun things. The Dolphins at least have Waddle and Achane. The Browns even lately with Gabriel, at least they look somewhat functional when they're protected. The Jets don't have weapons. So, I mean, Fields isn't startable. I'm with you there, but it's the whole passing game. This is the worst passing game in football right now.
And their offensive line has also been, it's the most disappointing for me. And we'll get to the Panthers because obviously the Panthers won. I promise we'll get more into them in a second, but we're going to talk about the good things with the Panthers because they won. The disappointing part with the Jets with their offensive line, their first 4 weeks, they had a 69.5 overall team blocking grade and a 62.7 run blocking grade as a team. Pretty decent offensive line to start the season through the first 4 weeks of the year. The last 3 weeks, 55.9 overall team blocking grade and just a 52.6 run blocking grade. Their two highest percentages of defeated run blocking plays as a team have come over the last 2 weeks. They're getting worse along the offensive line. And this goes a little bit towards the conversation that I was talking about with Cam Ward, where Armand Membu felt like the biggest difference-making offensive lineman on the Jets through the first couple of weeks of the season. Armand Membu is still a rookie. He was always going to give you an up and down season. Like, that's what you get as a rookie. And if you get the up, you're pretty pumped about it. But you know there's going to be some give and take because that's how it is with first-year players. He's the highest impact offensive lineman on the team. So when Armand Membu has a bad game, there's nobody picking the rest of the group up. And I think that's a big issue for them right now, and that's what's been exposed over the last 3 weeks is that when he has subpar games, it feels like there's just not really anybody who's consistently making a difference on that offensive line.
And again, just like Denver last week, Carolina did it a little bit because they have it in their defense. You're going to stack up front. I mean, that's what you're going to do.
Right.
You're going to stack up front. You're going to put 5 defensive linemen out there, and you're just going to match it up and go, throw it over our heads because we know you can't. We know for a fact you can't do it. That's where it's at right now, and that's where with the Jets, maybe, look, there's weeks we've seen, the last couple weeks, their defense has been spunky. They've been playing better, especially up front on the defensive line, but as not a high bar you have to clear offensively if you're an opponent of the Jets right now because they are as one-dimensional as it gets, and in games like this where they get away from the one dimension that should function, then again, this is why they scored 6 points. And the Panthers, credit real quick here to the Panthers defense as well, because we're going to talk about several guys here, but I throw some at you after having by far the league's worst run defense last year. They're 10th in the NFL in run defense grade as a team. There was going to be 2 factors that made the Panthers significantly better this year. Was a full year of Bryce Young being solid like he was the second half of last year. And he's got rumors that he has a high ankle sprain and might miss this next game against the Bills. We might see Andy Dalton for the full week next week against Buffalo. But they needed this front 7 to be better. With Derek Brown healthy, if you want to get into that right now, this front 7 is a lot better than last year, especially in the run game.
Most impressive.
You going first or I'm going first? Derek Brown or not?
I'll go first.
All right, I didn't know which way you wanted to go.
No, I'll talk Derek Brown. You talked about the front for the Panthers. Derek Brown, 85.8 overall defensive grade in this game, 70.0 run defense grade, 79.5 pass rush grade. I love how they align Derek Brown in this 3-4 front as one of the defensive ends because it allows him to flip from the play side, the strong side, or the weak side, wherever they feel it's most advantageous. They can align him in different gaps. They can have him be a 5 technique defensive end at times. They can have him be a 4-eye. They can kick him inside closer to the nose tackle and have him as more of a 3 technique defensive tackle. They can get so creative with where they line him up because he has that strength, he has that speed, and let me tell you, he played so well against double teams in this game. He had so many opportunities to take on double teams and rip by one guy or try to split it or just hold it as best he can, and he did a fantastic job. That's the sign of an all-around great defensive lineman, somebody that has alignment versatility, that can take on double teams, and then when you give him the opportunity to have single blocking situations or let him pin his ears back, he gets in the backfield. He had 2 sacks in this game. He was really good in run defense, like I said, as well. I just think that Derek Brown is one of the most talented defensive linemen in the NFL, and he's playing like it for the Panthers this season.
Agreed. And we mentioned this in the offseason of all the acquisitions they made on this defense, and it was a lot. The biggest one was getting Derek Brown back from the injury last year. That was the
100%.
biggest one, and you're seeing it now. Now you're really seeing him after kind of a couple warm-up weeks early in the year. Now you're seeing him play like the superstar that he is. And the other 2 guys that played like superstars were the Panthers' outside cornerbacks in this game. J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson. I want to give credit to both of them. Look, not the most difficult assignment against this Jets receiving core without Garrett Wilson, but that's why you go out there and play dominant football. Horn, 86.5 coverage grade, 2 interceptions. Jackson, 86.3 coverage grade, 2 forced incompletions. If you're going to get a good matchup, you might as well dominate it. Those 2 guys on the outside did. You know what, to be honest with you, I think in general that's just kind of an underrated cornerback duo anyway. Horn obviously makes the big money, and a lot of people know him, right? But even Mike Jackson is just the second guy. He did a pretty good year last year. You could do a lot worse at corner than the Panthers do with those
very
2 guys.
clearly with how they played this week.
With how they played this week for sure. But
clearly,
you could certainly do a lot worse than the Panthers have at corner. So, no, this defense is very quietly, it's getting better. And I think that was a big thing obviously the standard last year was so low that almost anything could be better, but it's nice to see that some of those acquisitions and Derek Brown returning are really starting to round this into at least a solid unit.